Well, here in the United States, we recently had some elections, and we see perhaps a shift in the balance of power that runs the United States. As we look around the world, we see China exerting its influence. We see Russia trying to dominate the Ukraine. So we see again shifts of power happening all around us. Come to Daniel chapter 8 today. We see the same thing. We see kingdoms at war. What we're doing in Daniel chapter 8 is we are moving from the prophetic history of the Gentiles, which we saw in chapters 2 through 7, and we're starting another major division of the book, chapters 8 through 12, which is the prophetic history of the Jews. Our outline here, pretty simple. Where you see the situation is described to us in verses 1 and 2. Then we see this vision of the ram and goat in verses 5 through 14. These are battling powers, is what they are. And in verses 15 through 26, we see the meaning of this vision. And then the chapter ends with the impact on Daniel, which is, again, significant. So this is the third year of the reign of Belshazzar. So again, this is 2 years after chapter 7. Chapter 7 and 8 are between chapters 4 and 5. So again, Daniel has arranged this for us thematically, not chronologically at this point. Daniel says he's at the Ulai Canal near the citadel of Susa. So Susa is the major city in the Medo-Persian Empire. It's about 250 miles east of Babylon, and it kind of gives you a hint about what's about to happen here as Daniel has moved from Babylon to Susa. Verses 5 through 14 then look at the vision. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. Verses 3 and 4 talk about this goat or this ram that's coming, that's attacking, and it's attacking the goat in verses 5 through 14. And he's going to explain what the details are in verses 15 through 26. So I'd say just read through this section and then wait or anticipate the divine interpretation. As you go through here today, note particularly the ram and the goat and that little horn. That little horn is going to be significant. In fact, verses 9 and following talk about this little horn, or what is called a small horn. We're going to see him again in chapter 11. Historically, this is Antiochus, who ruled from 175 to 164 BC. Antiochus attacked what's called the Beautiful Land in this section, which is Israel. And the host of heaven that's referred to in verse 10 are probably the people of Israel, godly people, heavenly people who are trampled and killed by this tyrant. Again, this is kind of setting the stage. Chapter 11 is going to give us a lot more detailed prophecy of what Antiochus is going to do, as well as some additional prophecy about what's symbolized by the ram and the goat. Verse 11, if you scoot down there a little bit, it even magnified, so it's talking about here the little horn, how he magnified himself to be equal with the commander of the host. And it removed the regular sacrifice from him, and the place of his sanctuary was thrown down. So the commander, or the prince of the host, I think this is likely the prophecy of Jesus. What he's saying here is looking forward past Antiochus, and he's saying that it's going to be the Antichrist who exalts himself and offers himself as a substitute for Jesus, Antichrist. Verse 14 then says, he said to me, for 2,300 evenings and mornings, then the holy place will be properly restored. So this is the duration of Antiochus's persecution. It's about 6.5 years 2,300 evenings. It started, we can date it, September 6th, 171 BC. And it came to an end on the 25th of December, 165. The end of this persecution that Antiochus is being prophesied here, and we'll see it more closely in chapter 11. When that persecution ended, the remaining priests, high priests, cleansed the temple. And that cleansing of the temple is commemorated in what's called the Feast of Lights, or sometimes you hear it referred to as Hanukkah. Verses 15 through 26 that we see the meaning of what you're going to read through the previous verses. We see, first of all, Gabriel's intervention here. I, Daniel, seen the vision. I sought to understand it, and behold, standing before me was one who looked like a man. So this is, we'll see later in this, as you read through this, is the angel Gabriel in verse 16. We've seen Gabriel before, one of two angels that are mentioned in the Bible. The other is Michael. Gabriel seems to be an angel that brings revelation, brings understanding of revelation. He gave Daniel the prophecy of the 70 weeks in Daniel chapter 9. He will announce the birth of both John the Baptist and Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. So he seems to be specifically a revelation-bringing angel. Gabriel's revelation, or is an interpretation in verses 19 through 26, is first the ram. The ram is for the end of time. He's Medo-Persia, so this is the latter period of time. This is the second kingdom that Daniel prophesied in Daniel chapter 2 and 7. So that's the ram that's coming. And he's bringing himself against the goat, verses 21 through 22, which is Greece, which is the third Gentile power in Daniel chapter 2 and 7. So what we're seeing here is the disposition of Medo-Persia by Greece. The large horned is that first king, or Alexander the Great. He died in 323 BC. And in verse 22, those four other horns there are his replacements, his generals, who divided up his kingdom among themselves. So the kingdom of Greece was divided after Alexander into four separate kingdoms, we could say, which two will be of particular interest to us later on. Verses 23 through 26 then introduce the destroyer. Let's take a look at verse 23. The latter period of their rule, when the transgressors have run their course, a king will arise, insolent and skilled in intrigue. This again is a prophecy of Antiochus. He's the destroyer here. He is coming. And there's going to be, as you'll see, both a near and far fulfillment of this figure. The near fulfillment we'll see in chapter 11 is Antiochus. The far and really the ultimate fulfillment of this is the coming Antichrist. Well, in verse 27, Daniel's just exhausted here. He's sick at heart by the coming dominion of Israel. He's sick at heart to think what's going to happen at the hands of Antiochus. Again, I think he's wondering, where does the kingdom fit into all of this? We'll see him asking about this later. But Daniel is shuts up this prophecy. It pertains to many days in the future. So Daniel is going to make sure that it's kept. That's what he means by shut up there. It's going to be preserved. Not kept secret, but it's going to be preserved so that in the future, when it's needed, it'll be available. How good God is to us, brothers and sisters. to make sure that we have the revelation we need when we need it. And not only for his church, but for Israel as well. God bless you.